And you previously mentioned that in a previous podcast that you would like your website to answer any questions that the customer might have.
Yeah.
Do you see website personalization solving that kind of problem for Dreamdata or for other companies?
So we haven't been doing much personalization yet. It's been more centered around defining an ideal customer profile for us and think through who at our ideal customer profile company, who would be the team that would normally be involved in the buying journey. So for us, it's typically different kinds of marketers, some ops and data people. Then they might have some security people. Maybe there's a legal department that needs to read through the data processing agreement. And then there's maybe a CFO or a CEO who needs to sign the contract. And we try to think through all these personas and make sure that there's content that pleases all of them.
How do you approach creating content at Dreamdata? I know you publish a lot on LinkedIn, but how does your content team work?
So it's very much listening to market feedback. So what are prospects saying on calls with the sales people? What are our customers asking for? I try to always think about it's kind of the one-to-one communication that we have with potential customers and customers are kind of a key ingredient. And then as a marketer, you need to think about, is there a one-to-many answer that we can give here? So if the same questions get asked 2-3 times, then you probably should be thinking about creating a great piece of content that can preempt this question in the future, or at least allow the salespeople to say, great question. We have an article right here that addresses this question, and have a look at that.
It sounds like you're producing a lot of very bottom of the funnel content. How do you think about top of the funnel content? How does it fit your strategy?
It basically doesn't, because of experience, but also we can see across many different accounts that what might create a lot of visitors on your website does not equal that it's worth anything for your company, because it doesn't create deals or deals that you win. So I think more about top of funnel as doing kind of thought leadership pieces. So what I had in mind, what I said before, is you go to a search engine tool. We use Ahrefs, and then you find the keyword that has the most searches. But typically there's such a weak intent in those ones. So instead we try to write thought leadership pieces relevant to our ideal customer profile. So for example, you mentioned these benchmarks that we released earlier this year. That's because we found it interesting to look at what is actually the average customer journey that we're dealing with here. And if we find that interesting, then other companies like us would also find it interesting. It could also be like with business challenges that we face, because then probably other companies face it. So this week we released a piece we've learned about churn prevention and churn prediction. So we kind of share our learning experience with companies similar to us. Now, hopefully that content resonates. So we don't write for search engines. We write because it's relevant for ourselves and for companies like us.
Do you see it would play any kind of role in creating more brand awareness?
Yeah, like those pieces I mentioned here is definitely, or hopefully, creating brand awareness for us. We've seen these benchmarks mentioned all over the place, and our partners like it. If there's no commercial goal in writing content, then you probably wouldn't spend any resources on it. So obviously our intention is that it creates awareness that becomes demand, which becomes deals at some point.
Have you seen it from the data of Dreamdata's customers, this kind of general business content having any kind of influence on something that can be loosely tied to your business?
We haven't pursued it that much, so I can't say anything definitive about it, but we have written some SEO articles, and they're kind of in a graveyard because they're not like super spot on to what we do. And then you don't invest the time and resources in making sure that it ranks and that it gets distributed. Then it's just been a cost of us producing it, but without us actually putting any deliberate effort in spreading it, because we know it's kind of also off topic. So at least we're not big enough to have these kind of off-topic pushes for ranking certain pieces of content.
It's a good point that if you don't have a piece of content that you would like to repurpose, then it's probably not a good piece of content for your business. I saw on your website that you are at least personalizing different landing pages, say for marketing agencies that can use Dreamdata. How do you approach personalization? Have you done anything? You mentioned you don't do outbound, so that's not really applicable.
So we do, to the typical personas we meet, we try to make sure that we do have content that addresses all of them. So I didn't think about it as, I think when you say personalization, I think more like a one-on-one personalization, but overall we're trying to read the landscape of who are we dealing with and make sure that the website reflects this. So a good example is that a couple of years back, we didn't transparently show how our data model works. And then we would only be speaking to the marketer, although there would always be a data person that would need to make sure we're not just shitting here. So we developed this very transparent illustration of how our data platform works. And now when a data person then comes in, he can see, okay, they extract data, then they transform it, and then they deliver the product. And that's an example. We kept seeing these data people in the sales process, and then we developed content to sort of make them trust us as well.
What about on the product side? If there's multiple types of users inside the product, do you personalize the experience for them?
We haven't done it yet, but it's definitely a move that we're considering. And there's ways to do that, can detect which role are you, and then customizing the product inside of it. And I think in many ways, it could help simplify the product experience, because then it will be easier to show them relevant stuff. And that is a like core challenge of a product like Dreamdata, is that it's such a wide range of users, from people who spend money on ads to content people to CMOs, CFOs, CEOs, etc. And kind of all of them needs to be catered to. And at some point, we probably will need to personalize it a bit more based on roles.
I previously talked with Lars about your website, and I noticed that you're on Squarespace.
Yeah.
Have you seen, or do you expect to renew the website at some point to maybe some other platform?
So I think the reason why we're on Space is that it's so damn easy to use for everybody. So we don't get locked down by us needing engineering resources for anything. And I think this enables us to execute very, very fast. If we were to go with anything that just needed the slightest of HTML, things would move a lot slower. So as long as we can delay that, we'll do that. I know it's not the hip tech thing to do, but it's very easy to keep executing stuff on Squarespace. It's not to say that we're not going to change in the future, but as you know, in a startup, speed just matters much more than being technically cool or something like that.
That's for sure. There is something kind of funny I've run into as well in that category, which is marketers tell us that, hey, I can change anything on my website with this tool. We have a custom website. Can I just change things without personalization? You know, is that possible? And it's kind of an interesting value proposition as well. Change anything on your current website without needing any code.